Her water broke at 8 o'clock, right on the dot. This little thing popped out. Yeah.
Hi guys, my name is Kayla and I am 29 years old and I just had my daughter in December of 2024 and I really wanted to tell my positive induction story. I feel like a lot of the videos and just things that I've heard out in the wild about induction are not necessarily always positive, and I had a pretty good experience and I wanted to be a voice of good in the world and just share my experience so that hopefully if you're getting induced and you're a little bit anxious about it, maybe this video will help you a little bit. I do want to let you guys know that I am going to be mentioning a prior loss. So if that is something that you're not ready to hear about yet, or it's something that you don't ever want to hear about, it triggers you, it's just not, you know, you're not in a place to hear anything about that, then I totally understand. Please click out of this video, and if you want to come back to it later, I would love for you to do that, but I am going to be talking about it because I feel like it is a little bit important to the story. So my first pregnancy unfortunately did end in loss. I had to deliver our baby boy at 20 weeks. We found out at our 20-week appointment that he had stopped growing, which was, you know, heartbreaking, devastating, all of the things. We've had a lot of time to heal from that, and having my daughter has also really helped, but it was a really, really hard time for my husband and I. But one good positive that did come out of that was I was able to go into the practice of the certified nurse midwives, who were the ones who were there to deliver our first baby at 20 weeks, and then they were also able to deliver our daughter. They are absolutely incredible. The certified nurse midwife group that I saw, they really just, like I said, they had to deliver our baby stillborn at 20 weeks, and they were just incredible through the whole process. They took so much time to explain everything to us. They were so caring. They were crying with us. They were just, I don't know how to say it otherwise, and they were just absolutely incredible. When it came time that I got pregnant the second time, I knew that I for sure wanted to go back to them because they were just the most amazing people that I've ever met when it came to being in a doctor's office setting. And I also really wanted to have, you know, the personability of a midwife where they really take the time to talk to you. They answer all your questions. You can call them if you need to. They just care about you so much compared to a regular OB, at least in my experience. They kind of rush you in, rush you out. And sometimes the OB that you see isn't even the one that's going to deliver your baby. So there were 3 certified nurse midwives at my office, and you kind of rotated your appointments through them so that you met every single one. So whenever it came time to deliver your baby, you at least knew who was going to be delivering them. If like your favorite midwife or your main midwife wasn't the one that was on call, you still at least had a little bit of a relationship with them, which I really, really appreciated. So my body has already been through the delivery process before I got pregnant with my daughter, but of course it was really early, baby was really small, it wasn't quite the same. But I think that did kind of help my body a little bit when it was time to give birth to my daughter, because my body had already been introduced to Pitocin and it's already kind of gone through the process. So I don't know if that's what made it so easy for me, or if it just, you know, wasn't that bad of an experience as some people say that it is. So because of the prior loss, my midwife and maternal fetal medicine did deem me as high risk, so I ended up going to maternal fetal medicine. At the beginning there, it was about every month, and then it slowly worked its way up to every 2 weeks, and then it kind of worked its way up to every week towards the end of the pregnancy there, where they would do ultrasounds and just check on baby's growth and, you know, all of the things that they check on in ultrasounds. And by the time I think I got to around 35 or 36 weeks, they noticed that my daughter had not been growing as much as she should have been. They were just keeping a close eye on her. I was having weekly ultrasounds, and then by the time I got to around 38 weeks, they realized that she just wasn't really getting as big as she should have been on the inside, so they thought it might be a good idea to get her out so that she could start growing on the outside. So I was 38 weeks and 5 days when we went in for the induction. We got there at 5 a.m. and not much happened for a few hours. I mean, when I got there, they hooked me up to an IV, they hooked me up to the baby belly monitors, and then my husband and I just kind of hung out for a few hours until the midwife got there and was able to start calling the shots. I think I just took a nap, like really nothing was happening until they finally started giving me Pitocin, and even then not much happened for quite a while. My mom came up and we just played some games, we just hung out, watched movies. I was having really, really small contractions, but nothing crazy. They kind of just felt like period cramps. I feel like it's important to mention that I went in with like an idea of how I wanted my birth to go, not necessarily a birth plan, but just some things that I really wanted to be able to do. The biggest one being that I really had it in my head that I was going to have no epidural the entire time. Spoiler alert, that did not happen. But I didn't want to have an epidural. I wanted to do it as natural as I could. I wanted to be able to move around while I was having contractions, bounce on the ball, walk around, you know, change into different positions, do all the things. I wanted my husband to be able to cut the cord. I really didn't want to have a C-section unless I absolutely had to, which duh. I mean, I don't think they're going to give you one just because. And then I wanted to have immediate skin to skin after she was born. Giving me a few rounds of Pitocin, and still I was just having really small contractions, not much was happening. And it's kind of funny because I was talking to my mom, I'm like, I'm so sorry that you're here, it's so boring, like nothing exciting is happening. We're just laying here watching movies and playing games. And then I realized that I had to pee. So my husband and my mom were helping me up to go to the restroom so I could pee, and this gush of liquid came flowing out of me, and I was kind of freaked out. I'm like, is this my water? I don't think it's my water. I'm like, but I also still have to pee, so I don't think it's my pee. And my mom's like, honey, that's your water broke. And I don't know why I didn't believe her, but I'm like, can somebody go get the nurse just so I can figure out what's going on. The nurses that I also had were so incredible. I ended up with a really great group of people. But the nurse comes in and she's like, yeah, honey, that's your water, it broke. I'm like, okay, well, what do I do now? And she's like, well, do you just still have to pee? And I'm like, yes. And she's like, okay, well, then go pee. And I don't, so, you know, it was this whole like, oh, my water broke moment, which was kind of funny because I was just telling my mom that it was getting boring and nothing exciting was happening. What they don't tell you though, or what I guess I just never really paid attention to, was once your water breaks, it's like, you know, it's not just this gush of water and then you're done. It's just constantly trickling out of you, which is really uncomfortable and just a really weird feeling. One thing that was really cool was, since I wanted to be able to move around while having my contractions, they hooked me up to a wireless belly band monitor to monitor the baby. And it was really cool. I could walk around, I could bounce on the ball, I could do all kinds of things, and it would still keep track of her heart rate and all of those things, which was really, really nice. I want to say that when my water broke, it was probably around 4 or 5 p.m. So we had been at the hospital for almost 12 hours at this point, and not much exciting was happening. So my mom finally decided to go home because it just, you know, I kept telling her, like, nothing is happening. Like, my contractions aren't really getting any stronger. They checked me. I was only at like a 1.5 or something like that. Things just weren't really progressing. And I still had it in my brain that I really wanted to have a no epidural birth. So I still didn't have one. I'm just, you know, going through my contractions on the birthing ball in the bed. And they really aren't this bad at this point, but as it gets towards the middle of the night, I think maybe around 11 or 12, my contractions started getting a little bit more intense. I really had to breathe through them. My husband had to help me. They were starting to hurt. And so I had it in my brain like, oh my gosh, okay, maybe things are, you know, progressing. Maybe things are picking up. So they checked me and I was only at a 2. So I'd only dilated 0.5 centimeter more in all of those hours. And that was really defeating. I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do? I'm feeling all these hard contractions and I'm thinking things are moving along and they're not. So I asked my midwife if there's anything I can have for pain that's not an epidural, and they give me something, I don't know what it is. They put it in my IV, made me really, really sleepy, and it helped my contractions. The first time they gave it to me, I was able to sleep right through them. And then they gave it to me a second time and I was able to start feeling them a little bit more. And then the third time they gave it to me, it really felt like it wasn't doing much. It was making me sleepy, but I could still feel all of my contractions very, very aggressively, and they were getting more and more aggressive, it felt like. So maybe around 3 a.m. They come in, the nurse midwife comes in, and she is just asking me how things are going, and I'm telling her that my contractions feel like they're getting, you know, a lot more intense. I feel like things are really progressing this time. And she's like, okay, do you want me to check you? And of course I did. I wanted to see if anything had moved along, and I was still at a 2. So that was really, really defeating. She was like, do you want to get the epidural? What do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I need a little bit of time to think about it. So she leaves. I think she went to go sleep because she was on call being there all night. And I'm like kind of having this debate with myself where I'm like, I really wanted to do this all natural minus the Pitocin part. Just, I don't know, I had it in my brain that that's really what I wanted to do, and I wanted to be strong, and, you know, our bodies are made to do this, all those things that I was telling myself. And finally, I think my husband and I just decided, like, let's just get the epidural because I'm in pain, nothing's really happening. How long am I going to be in this pain for? How long is it going to take? You know, it didn't seem worth it to just be sitting in this pain for who knows how long. So he left to go get the doctor and tell them I wanted the epidural, and they were in my room in, I swear, like 2 minutes to give me the epidural. And honestly, the whole reason that I wanted to go natural with no epidural is because, not that I think it would make me, like, you know, better or holier than thou or any of those things. I just really was scared of getting the epidural. The needle freaked me out. The part of it going in my spine freaked me out. maybe potentially having complications afterward freaked me out. I just really didn't want that needle in my back. But honestly, as the contractions were getting worse and worse and worse, the fear of the epidural really started to disappear and the pain started to outweigh that fear. And so they came into my room to give me the epidural. I was still a little bit sleepy from those meds that they gave me. Just felt like a little bit loopy, but I still could feel the contractions and things like that, which is kind of hard because they give you the epidural while you're still contracting. They tried to do it in between contractions, but mine were getting a little bit close, and so they didn't really have enough time to do it completely in between a contraction. So like I said, I had some amazing nurses, and the night nurse, she kind of got in front of me. She was like, grab my shirt. I had to have my back completely hunched over. My husband couldn't be in there because I think they just think that spouses might freak out when they see that needle go into their back, which is probably a good thing that my husband wasn't in there because he is a little bit woozy with blood and things like that. So thankfully I had a really, really amazing nurse who was there to talk me through it, and they gave me the epidural. It didn't take very long. I really couldn't feel anything. I also was really freaked out about having to have a catheter, which you have to have when you have an epidural because, you know, you lose feeling of everything down there, so you would just pee yourself if you didn't have one. It really wasn't bad at all, and by the time I got it, it started working very, very quickly, so I didn't even really feel them put the catheter in. And then my husband finally came back in the room and he was looking at the monitor that was showing my contractions, and the nurse was like, "Do you even know that you're having a contraction right now?" And I was like, "No, not really." And her and my husband were both like, "Good, because it is a huge one," because you can tell just how big, you know, the waves and everything are on it. Needless to say, I was feeling a lot better, and I really hadn't slept much this entire time because I really couldn't sleep through my contractions. They hurt pretty bad, and I was really antsy, you know, just a little bit anxious and ready for her to get out. The epidural really kicked in. I got really, really sleepy, and I was able to sleep for quite a while. What I didn't really know until afterwards was, because I was so sleepy and so loopy, was the nurses kept coming in and flipping me from side to side. I want to say like every 45 minutes to an hour, because my daughter's heart rate kept going down, and then when they rotated me, it would go back to normal. I guess if I just stayed in one position for too long, she didn't really like that, so they kept coming in and flipping me, and that happened for about 4 hours. The last time they came in to flip me, you know, make sure her heart rate was good and everything like that, baby girl got settled. She was all good, and they were like, "How are you feeling?" Because I had woken up a little bit during that one, and I was like, "I don't know, I'm feeling some pressure. Things just feel a little bit different." But you know, in my head, I'm thinking nothing's really happening because every time they've checked me so far, nothing has happened. I haven't progressed at all. They, you know, go to check, and I'm pretty sure my nurse was like, "Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa." She's like, "I'm pretty sure you're ready to push," but the nurse couldn't check me. They had to wait for the certified nurse midwife to come in and do it. So they waited and waited for her to come in, saw that I was already at a 10 when she checked me. So it was time for baby girl to come. It was around like 7:30 in the morning when this happened, when they noticed that I was at a 10, and my husband was asleep. So once they realized that the baby was coming, my nurse was like, "Okay, Dad, wake up, you're about to have a baby." So he's waking up out of this like deep sleep, because we were both sleeping pretty hard because I wasn't really having to, you know, work through the contractions at all. And so he, you know, is kind of disoriented because he had just gotten woken up, kind of trying to figure out what's going on. He realizes that baby is coming like right this second pretty much. It was just a lot to wake up to, I'm sure. And like I mentioned before, he's a little bit woozy around blood, so they have me, you know, in the pushing position. They're having me doing practice pushes, but not too many because they're worried that she's gonna like come out before the nurse midwife is ready for her to. So they're like, "Hey Dad, look, you know, we can see baby's head," and he looks and sees her head and gets very woozy. Like I mentioned, he's not very good with blood. And the nurse said that he just kind of looked a little bit white, which obviously I probably would too if I'd just woken up and then that's the first thing that I saw. But he really wanted to be able to cut the cord. I really wanted him to be able to, so he went to the bathroom, I think, to just kind of like gather himself a little bit. Maybe he felt a little bit woozy, and the nurse and I were both yelling at him like, come back, like if you pass out in there, nobody's gonna know that you fell down, because it was just the nurse and the midwife in there, and obviously they were tending to me because I was about to have the baby. So he comes in and the nurse gets him a wet rag, you know, and everything happened. Everything was fine. He was able to kind of like pull it together. He didn't ended up passing out or anything like that. And they had me do my practice pushes, like I said, but I had to stop. The nurse midwife is finally ready for me to actually do my pushes, and I'm pretty sure, I think they said I pushed about 4 times, like 4 real pushes, and it was in less than 10 minutes, and she was out, which was great because I hear people pushing for a very long time whenever they are induced or just go into birth naturally, they push for a really long time, like hours and hours. And I also have heard that, you know, contractions on Pitocin are even worse than contractions without Pitocin. I don't know, I've only had Pitocin both times. I was just really happy that she came out so quickly. And I forgot to mention that we didn't know what she was whenever, you know, we were having the ultrasounds and things like that. We waited until she was born to figure out if she was a boy or a girl. So whenever she did finally come out, the nurse midwife wrapped her up in a blanket, placed her on my chest, and my husband and I were able to unwrap her and figure out that she was a girl. And it was so special. If you have the chance to go Team Green, if you can handle that, I would really recommend doing it, because it was such a special time to be able to figure out that she was a girl together, like when she was actually here and see her. So whenever she was on my chest, we figured out she was a girl. The nurse midwife was like, okay, what's her name? My husband and I had two names that we were kind of juggling between, and he looks at me and he's like, well, which one is it? Like, what do you want to do? And so we named her. It's just so special that we were able to kind of be in that situation together. My husband was able to cut the cord. We were able to do skin on skin almost immediately. They did take her away for a little bit. I want to say like maybe 5 or 10 minutes to do all the things that they do to newborns, and then they gave her right back. And then it was time to start, you know, getting ready to figure out how to feed her. It was probably, obviously, the most amazing thing that I've ever gone through in my whole entire life. I would do it a gajillion times over to have her again. When I look back on it, I know they say that you kind of lose memory of, you know, if it was good or bad or whatever, so that you will do it again. But I remember even thinking like the next day that it really wasn't bad at all, and I would do it again. And I would definitely get the epidural a little bit sooner the next time, because it just, everything worked out so well. I didn't have any complications from having the epidural, thankfully. I was able to walk pretty quickly. I was able to go to the restroom really quickly. One thing that I was super worried about when I got pregnant was not necessarily the giving birth part, but the taking care of myself afterwards part, like going to the restroom and just, you know, the healing process and things like that. But that really wasn't that bad either. I did tear just a tiny bit. I had one small stitch because my baby came out with her arm, like with her face. So she was a little bit bigger coming out. And then she weighed 5 pounds, 12 ounces, so she was pretty small. But yeah, it was the most magical thing. And I was a little bit worried going into it, or a lot of it worried going into delivering my daughter, just because of the prior loss and just this anxiousness of I hope everything goes okay, because I know a lot of times things can go south. People can go get emergency C-sections. You know, it can end in not having your baby. It's just very scary and exciting and amazing and terrifying all at the same time. She just woke up from her nap, but I'm almost done with this, so I just wanted to say that if you are nervous about having a induced birth and going on Pitocin and, you know, just not having that going into labor on your own experience, because I know that I was a little bit bummed that I wouldn't be able to kind of just, you know, like, oh, my water broke, it's time to go to the hospital experience. But nothing ever goes the exact way that you want it to, and, you know, things can still happen. It can be a very scary time going into the hospital. yeah. To have your baby, period, whether it is natural or induction or C-section or any of those things. Having your baby is the most magical thing in the whole entire world. Like I said, I would do it a gajillion times over. I would do it a gajillion times over. I love this little girl so much. Everything is worth it once you have them. I hope that this video was able to give you a little bit of a positive insight on inductions, and if you are going to have one, you are so strong, you're going to do amazing, and I hope everything goes so smoothly. Yeah, if you guys have any questions about anything, please feel free to leave a comment down below. I would love to talk to you guys about it. I also, like I said, this is my first video, and I'm going to plan on doing some vlogs and just some other motherhood videos. Lifestyle. I love to thrift. I love to do home improvements. I love to do all kinds of crafting things, making quilts, stuff like that. So that's what I'm going to try to revolve my channel around. So if you guys are interested in any of that, I would love if you would subscribe and stick around. And if you have a positive induction story or just a positive birth story in general, I would also love if you would leave that in the comments down below, because I feel like we just need some more positive stories out there. I'm gonna go Tinder. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you next video. Bye! Oh, goodness! What are you doing?